You know, I've been nibbling on California dried plums since I was a kid, and I love adding them to all kinds of recipes, not just the sweet ones. I think of them as my secret ingredient, a way to naturally add a hint of sweetness and key nutrients. And believe it or not, I could even add them to meatballs. I'm gonna show you 2 recipes for amazing dried plum enhanced meatballs. If you've ever had that famous combination of pork with dried plums, you know these meatballs are a wonderful idea. For the Swedish meatballs, first soak the bread with milk. So I'm just gonna tear the bread pieces up a little bit. And doing this is gonna help, along with the California dried plums, to keep these meatballs really, really moist. So just pour that milk over and let it soak. I cooked up some onions. Since the meat's cold, you definitely wanna let those onions rest for a little bit and cool down. I have some nutmeg, salt, white pepper, and allspice. Add that into the mixture, add in the pork. And now the secret ingredient, the plum puree. Add the California dried plums, some hot water. This is really easy. I know it can seem intimidating, but there's no reason for it to be. And let it go for a whirl. And you just really want to eyeball it. It doesn't really matter how much water you add. You just want a nice moist puree. And just add that directly into your meatballs. And we get in there with our hands. And you don't want to overmix it because you want to make sure that your meatball stays nice and soft. This is going to be delicious. They're super tender and very, very flavorful. That's pretty well mixed together. So what you want to do is have a bowl of water on hand. And so you just scoop up a little bit, dab your hands a little just to get them a little wet, which makes forming the meatballs a lot easier. And you're gonna form about 20 meatballs. The best thing about this recipe is you could serve it as a main dish or as an hors d'oeuvre. They're very, very light and very tender. You wanna have a very light hand when you're forming these. So you don't need to go too crazy making them perfectly shaped meatballs. No one cares as long as they're tasty, which they are. Now I'm gonna take the same idea in an Asian direction, a meatball sandwich Vietnamese style. Of course, I'm not just adding flavor, I'm secretly adding nutrition too. Because adding California dried plums to dishes helps reduce fat and enhance flavor while adding moisture, especially with the meatballs. The Banh Mi meatballs begin with the turkey, then the California dried plum puree. We have garlic, scallions, and water chestnuts. Add that in. Add some sriracha, which is just a garlic chili sauce. Add some fish sauce. Fish sauce is a great ingredient because it adds a lot of depth of flavor. And add a little salt. Start mixing them. Even though this is a very simple recipe, what you could do is mix the meatballs ahead of time and then stick them in the freezer and then use them as you want. So for an easy lunch on the weekend or a quick weeknight meal. You know, they're not just a fruit. California dried plums are a superfruit. They have fiber, antioxidants, potassium. They aren't just good for you, they taste really great. You want to just start forming your meatballs. About the size of a dried plum. The best thing about these meatballs is the contrast of flavors. You have all the fresh herbs, and you have the spice from the sriracha, but then you have the sweetness of the plums. It's really nice contrast. So I'm gonna wash my hands and then we're gonna pop them in the oven. So here we have meatballs 2 ways. We have the Swedish style as well as the Vietnamese style. They cook at the same time. So I preheated my oven to 350 degrees and will be there for about 15 minutes or so. They're about ready. Take them out. Try not to burn myself. And while those are resting, I'm gonna start the sauce for the Swedish style meatballs. On about a medium-high heat pan, we're gonna add oil and some flour to make a roux. Whisk that in. So make sure the flour and the oil is all incorporated, and you wanna cook it a little bit so that it doesn't have that raw flour taste. Before it starts to brown, you wanna add in the stock, and the roux will thicken your stock. And you want to make sure that it comes to a boil because that's when the thickening power kicks in. This makes a really smooth, really luscious sauce to go along with those meatballs. So once it comes to a boil, you want to add in the rest of your ingredients. So now we have sour cream, a pinch of white pepper, a pinch of salt. Stir that in, and that is your sour cream sauce. We'll add the final ingredient, which is the dill. Once it's stirred up, we're gonna turn off the heat, and then we're gonna add in some meatballs just so they're warmed through. That dill is so strong. These are really, really delicious. So once all the meatballs are covered by that sauce and are warming through, we're gonna move on to our banh mi. So what I have here is just a French style roll, which I've already cut. And so we're gonna pick out some of the inside. So that gets out some of that breadiness. You wanna have room for your delicious meatballs. We're gonna have some sriracha mayonnaise. Once again, this is to taste. I like a lot of spice, so mine's gonna look probably more pink than most people's. So just scoop that in to both sides of your sandwich. Put a few of the meatballs into your sandwich. Once again, since you scooped out some of that bread, they have a nice little resting place in the middle. So the fillings for our banh mi, we have jalapenos, we have daikon and carrots, and we have cilantro. And daikons are just a type of radish. I like a lot of spice, so I'm gonna put a lot of these jalapenos on. And then we have the shredded carrot and daikon, which adds a really nice fresh crunch. And then the cilantro. So here we have our Vietnamese style meatball sandwich. And let's move over here, and we have our Swedish style meatballs. Make sure to get a lot of that sauce because it is truly delicious. As an athlete, I know it's important to fuel your body with the proper nutrients. California dried plums help me stay fit and feel good, and they could do the same thing for you.